The Ukrainian commander said his forces would soon launch a counteroffensive on Bakhmut. Reported by ABC News, Ukraine was in defensive mode for 4 months, but is now about to start attacking when the Russian troops start to lose momentum. Russia's Wagner mercenaries have lost considerable strength and are exhausted, Kyiv Ground Forces commander Alexander Syrsky said in a social media post. Soon, we will seize this opportunity, as we did in the past near Kyiv, Kharkiv, Balaklia and Kupiansk, he added. There was no immediate response from Moscow on perceived forces in Bakhmut losing momentum. But Wagner boss Yevgeny Prigozhin issued pessimistic statements in recent days warning of a Ukrainian counterattack. On Monday, Prigozhin published a letter to Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu, saying Ukraine aims to cut off Wagner's troops from Russia's regular army. Journalists near the front line north of Bakhmut saw signs consistent with claims that the Russian offensive in the area was flagging. It was very hot here a week ago, but in the last 3 days it has become much quieter, said a Ukrainian soldier using the call sign, Kamin, or Rock. This we can see from the enemy airstrikes. Where before there were 5 to 6 airstrikes a day, today we only had 1 helicopter strike and it was too far away to be effective, said one soldier, a member of the anti-aircraft unit in the 10th Mountain Assault Brigade. Call for arms assistance. The slowdown in Russia's advance on Bakhmut could be due to Moscow diverting its troops and resources elsewhere. Britain said on Thursday that Russian troops had made further gains north this month, partially regaining control of the approaches to the city of Kreminna, a Ukrainian target. Fierce fighting also took place further south. Meanwhile, Moscow had sent hundreds of thousands of reservists and newly recruited convicts recruited by Wagner from prison into battle. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky urged Europe to immediately provide its troops with more weapons and impose additional sanctions on Russia. He also warned that the war could drag on for years. If Europe waits, the evils may have time to regroup and prepare for years of war. It is in your power to prevent this, Zelensky said in a video address to EU leaders. In particular, Zelensky reiterated demands for longer-range missiles, more ammunition and more modern aircraft. He said the EU needed to speed up the process to grant Ukraine membership. Slovakia hands over its first MiG jet. On Thursday, Slovakia handed over the first 4 MiG-29 jets it promised to donate to Ukraine, with the rest of the aircraft to be delivered in the coming weeks, the Slovak Ministry of Defense said. Slovakia, a NATO member on the eastern wing of the military alliance, last week joined Poland in announcing the delivery of jets to Ukraine. In total, Slovakia said it would donate 13 Soviet-made fighter jets, which Kyiv said were critical to repelling the year-long Russian invasion. U.S. loses suspect from Russia. Son of Russian governor escapes from detention in Milan. The United States has lost a suspect from Russia who has been wanted in a number of cases. The suspect, named Artyom Uss, became an international fugitive after escaping from house arrest near the city of Milan, Italy on Thursday, the 23rd of March 2023. Artyom Uss is a suspect on charges of evading sanctions and money laundering. He is also said to have bought U.S. technology and sold it to an issuer in Russia. ANSA reported, Artyom Uss is the son of the governor of Russia's Krasnoyarsk region, Alexander Uss. Artyom is now being wanted by the Carabinieri, an Italian law enforcement agency that also acts as military police. Uss is believed to have tampered with his electronic signature before leaving his home earlier this week. The development comes just days after an appeals court in Milan approved the 40-year-old's extradition to Uncle Sam's country. Uss was detained last October at Milan's Malpensa airport on charges of sanctions evasion and money laundering. New York District Attorney had previously issued an international arrest warrant for him. Uss, who has been held under house arrest since his initial detention, denied the accusations and his lawyers told TASS they intended to appeal the extradition decision. According to ANSA, Uss was preparing to challenge the court's decision when he disappeared. The U.S. has claimed that the governor's son allegedly purchased American military technology before selling it to a sanctioned Russian entity. He is also accused of smuggling oil from Venezuela to customers in China and Russia. In October, a Russian court ordered Uss arrest on money laundering charges. Moscow has since demanded his extradition to his homeland. Governor Alexander U.S.'s claims that the charges against his son are politically motivated. Lawyers for Artyom U.S.'s also suggested that Washington may want to use him in a potential prisoner swap with Moscow. A court in Italy approved the extradition of Artyom U.S.'s to the United States on Tuesday after he was arrested on charges of evading sanctions and money laundering. The 40-year-old was detained in Italy in October at Milan Malpensa Airport on orders from the U.S., which accuses him, as well as 5 other Russian nationals, of helping Moscow evade Western sanctions. The accused are suspected of buying U.S. military technology, selling it to sanctioned Russian entities, as well as smuggling oil from Venezuela to customers in China and Russia. U.S.'s, who is now under house arrest near Milan, has repeatedly denied the accusations, and his lawyers told the TASS news agency that they intend to appeal the U.S. extradition decision. He noted that Italian courts had approved the extradition of 2 of the 4 charges against his client and that an appeal would be submitted within 15 days to the Court of Cassation. In October, a Russian court also ordered U.S. arrest and put him on the federal wanted list for a large-scale money laundering scheme. Moscow has since demanded Kami be extradited to Russia. U.S.'s officially objected to being deported to the United States, which he says he last visited when he was just 14 years old. However, he officially asked to be extradited to Russia. His lawyers also questioned the potential conditions of the entrepreneur's detention in the U.S. and pointed out that the Russian could face discrimination in American prisons. The final decision on extradition will be made by the Italian Justice Minister and will be implemented only after all relevant documents have been signed. Under Italian law, ministers are allowed to override court decisions in such cases. Governor Alexander U.S.'s claimed that the charges brought against his son as well as his arrest had obvious political overtones. Lawyers for his son, meanwhile, have argued that U.S. interest in extraditing the Russian is dictated by a desire to then use him in a custody swap with Moscow, possibly hoping to trade him for Paul Whelan, who was convicted on espionage charges in Russia in 2020. A Moscow court has ordered the arrest of the son of Alexander U.S.'s, governor of the Krasnoyarsk region in Siberia. According to the court documents, the verdict was made in absentia, and Artyom U.S.'s was put on the wanted list. The younger man was detained in Italy last week at the request of the U.S. for his alleged involvement in helping Moscow evade Western sanctions. Artyom U.S.'s was charged with large-scale money laundering as part of an organized criminal group. The maximum penalty for such an offense is 7 years in prison. U.S.'s has also been added to a wanted database on the Russian Interior Ministry website. Moscow can now demand his extradition from Italy because the 40-year-old refuses to be transferred to the U.S. U.S. authorities previously announced that charges had been filed against U.S.'s and 4 other Russian nationals. It said they were part of a group that buys advanced semiconductors and microprocessors used in fighter aircraft, missile systems, smart munitions, radars and satellites, and then sells them to approved Russian entities through a German-based shell company. According to the U.S., the equipment made it into the hands of the Russian defense industry and was allegedly later found in Russian hardware that had been left in Ukraine. U.S.'s and his associates are also accused of smuggling hundreds of millions of barrels of sanctioned oil from Venezuela to customers in China and Russia, including on Washington's blacklist of aluminum tycoons. In response to his son's arrest and the charges, Governor Alexander U.S.'s said that the political overtones are evident in these allegations. He pointed out that the goods are freely bought and sold around the world, and the U.S. has a problem with it, simply because it is in the interests of Russia.